Welcome to Season 1 of the Overcomers Podcast. We are going to talk to you about overcoming adversity and living your dreams. If you've ever struggled, this is for you. We're going to talk to you about such struggles as
drug addiction, relationship struggles, parenting struggles,
incarceration, being displaced from your home. We're even going to touch on things such as sexual assault, or even if you just struggle with finding your purpose, finding your passion, being part of a community, this is for you. Like I said, if you've ever struggled, this is for you. So welcome to the Overcomers Podcast, where we're going to help you to overcome the adversities of life and live your dreams. Well, welcome to another episode of the Overcomers Podcast, here with my co-host and wife, Cyndy Barnes.
Super excited.
Interviewing our friend and mentor, Bedros Keuilian today. Bedros is the franchisor of Fit Body Boot Camp, which has over 500 locations open, about 800 sold. He is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the book Man Up. He also is a co-founder of the Empire Mastermind with his partner Craig Ballantyne, which is a mastermind that we've participated in and got to know Bedros and Craig really well and have benefited largely from their mentorship. Bedros also recently started a thing called The Project, which is where they really help create leaders and help men to dig deep and find their inner strength. And most importantly, at least as far as the arena of today, is just the international presenter that you are, everywhere sharing your story to inspire people. And so today, that's what it's about. The Overcomers Podcast is about learning about the iceberg. We were just talking about this before the call. We're like, what's that adversity, one or two adversities that you had to overcome to become who you are? Because I think that people see the tip, but like you said, they don't see the iceberg. They don't see all the adversities. And I've just been so impressed getting to know you. I know we both have. Yeah. It's just been an awesome experience, and just somebody that we'll always respect and admire. And so that's what today was about. We wanted to share more of you with our circle, with the world.
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, the two of you are probably the best team of entrepreneurs I've ever met, because you guys complement each other really well. Not only when you guys come to the mastermind, but when I see you at IFA events and now here, I just the vibe you guys naturally have is huge. So I think that automatically speaks to the number one thing, which is find a partner that matches your energy, that shares your vision, has your drive. We see too many people in life who, hey, I fell in love with this person, but they want me to come home at 5 because they want the 9-to-5 life. I've got this grand vision and desire to help and impact and influence and make a lot of money. And there's no way the 9-to-5er is going to be making a lot of money. And money is a vehicle to impact. So answering your question, we said right before we started the podcast, we said, you show me someone who's successful, and I'll show you someone who has suffered, and I'll show you someone who has paid their dues of at least a decade. And you guys are no different in that. It's just, you need time to cook up something amazing. There's no shortcut to success. I have yet to find it, and I have yet to see anyone find it. And, as far as adversities, man, I mean, my list of adversities starts, between the ages of 4 and 6. I was molested by 2 older boys consistently in Armenia. I hid that from the world until I was 37 years old. I'm 45 now. At 37, I started having massive anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and I was getting self-destructive in my business with our Fit Body Boot Camp franchise here, which had just started. And I couldn't figure out why. Every time I would feel any kind of pressure or stress, I would go into self-destruct mode because I didn't feel worthy. I felt broken, unlovable. Like, that's what happens when someone has had sexual trauma in their life, and I never addressed it. So there's adversity number one. Adversity number two is
7 years it took you, though, to confront that. 30
think about that.
Or over 30. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, over 30 years, man. And you hold on to that, and it's a secret. You don't want anyone to know because they're going to think you're weird. Maybe you did something to encourage that you're the bad person, man. I was a kid. This happened to 2 older boys taking advantage of a kid, but you don't think about that. And when you look at the stats of 1 out of every 4 people have been physically or sexually abused, like, that's a fair number of people, and it's a topic that must be talked about. And, sometimes on stage, just to really get the audience's attention, I say, lucky for me, I've been molested. And they go, whoa, what do you mean? I say, well, I've learned adversity and I've learned suffering early on. And let me tell you, when someone has suffered that much silently, especially silently, where you can't tell anyone about it, you learn to develop coping skills, problem-solving skills, to really get through any other problem, which thankfully that happened to me, because then we moved to the United States from Armenia, a communist country. And now I'm 7 years old and I'm the foreign kid who doesn't speak English, doesn't understand the culture. I'm getting bullied and beat up. But that paled in comparison compared to what happened to me in Armenia. So I was able to cope with that better. You know, today you hear about some kids being cyberbullied and it's like, oh my gosh, we got to go talk to the parents, the school district, etc. Dude, I had like kids physically beating me up day in and day out. And I'm like, well, at least I'm not being molested, you know?
Well, the perspective of adversity, right? To have such intense adversity as being molested and then come here, because to me, that's a pretty huge adversity too, to come here and be the foreign kid and be bullied. But then you have this other perspective. There's a quote that says the depth of our struggle will determine the height of our success.
Oh,
right?
love that.
Yeah, so the fact that, you know, you're like, oh, okay, I got this one. It's not nearly as bad as what I've been through already, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we're missing in life is perspective. You know, you look at the person with, let's say, a beat up car and you're like, oh man, poor them, until you realize that the person next to them has a bike and the person next to that person has a wheelchair and the person next to that is an amputee. So perspective really sets the lens in which we look at life through. Because if I've only grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth, well, the moment I deal with any kind of adversity, the weather's too hot, it's too cold, the Uber didn't pick me up in time, I'm going to have a meltdown. But if I've gone through some shit in life, and most of us, I'm not saying we should get molested, like no one should ever have to suffer through that. But most of us should put ourselves in a position to put ourselves against adversity, whether it's working out, whether it's doing a mud run, whether it's doing some kind of a physical challenge, just push into the sides of your comfort zone. The comfort zone gets so warm and fuzzy and cozy. What would happen if you started leaning into the sides of your comfort zone and realizing that, holy crap, I could do that, therefore I could do this in my life. And I could do that, therefore I could do this in my life.
Mm.
And
So you're actually challenging people to find their adversity.
Yes, exactly. Because Napoleon Hill says, every adversity comes with an equal seed of opportunity and greatness. Like literally. So if you look at it that way, if you look at a walnut, if the outer shell of the walnut is the adversity, which you have to break through to get it, that is adversity. Inside is a really delicious, healthy, good for your brain walnut that you get to eat. That's how life is. It's yin and yang. It's dark and light. It's black and white. It's cold and hot. Why would anyone think that they're going to achieve any level of success in health, relationship, mindset, money without dealing with adversity? It's obscene.
Wow, that's such a great analogy about busting through that shell, that hard exterior, you know. And as I think about your story, I also think that I've often said that going to prison for 10 years was the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, exactly. I became a better father, I became a better husband, I became a better friend. But it only happened in that point because I was that kid that maybe took too much for granted in his life and thought that maybe the rules didn't apply to me. You know, I mean, that's really how I got there, combined with addiction, of course. But, you know, those kind of choices, you know, they bring you to this point in life where you have to make a decision. And the decision was, is this adversity going to break me? And when I decided, if it's to be, it's up to me. I like the saying that says that there's a couple great days in your life. You know, the day you were born, the day you find out why. I think that's an important one. And I'd like to say that there's a third one. The day that you decide that your life is your own, and that you can't blame anyone else for it, that it's totally up to you what happens with this life. You know, when you decide I'm in the driver's seat, you know, and that was something that happened to me during my adversity.
You know what? And isn't it funny, because by choice, you would never go to prison, right? Like, no one ever says, like, incarcerate me, please.
I was trying not to. Judge, please don't do it.
but it's always in hindsight where you go, holy crap, man, I'm a better father, I'm a better husband, I'm a better entrepreneur. I'll never take my freedom for granted, and I'll never take opportunities for granted, because there's not many there, and there's a high likelihood they're going to tack on more years if you don't stay in line. And so and that's the missing component, man. And very much to what you said, when I'm on stage, I always talk about the book of life. I always say that, look, when we're born as kids, Like, who says that little Bobby's favorite color is going to be red or green, and that little Bobby's going to be a chunky little kid that's you know, just predisposed to hold fat, and little Bobby is clumsy? Like, who says that? Mom and dad have to do these things for us. They change our diaper, they feed us, so they go, oh, this is Bobby's favorite food. This is Bobby's favorite color. But soon we grow up to get into our 20s and 30s, and we realize my whole life people have been doing things for me or telling me how my life should go. At what point will you take the pen back and start writing in those blank pages of your book of life of how it's really supposed to go? Like you said, you know, the day that we're born and the day that we figure out what our purpose is. Well, if you leave it to someone else to tell you, well, go be a doctor. You know, people are always going to get sick. You're always going to make money. Go be a doctor. If you are not inclined to be a doctor, but you went and became a doctor, one, you're probably going to end up killing people because that's just not your calling. Number two, you're going to be one depressed person, and you only have about 100 years on this planet if you play your cards right. Like, if you live right, eat right, work out right, positive mental attitude, you only got 100 years. That is a short amount of time to be doing something that you are not meant to be doing because someone else was still writing in your book of life, man.
Yeah. And if you want to increase your odds of living to 100, that you would work out at a Fit Body boot camp or a Journey or.
Yeah. Only those two places are either at a Journey or a Fit Body.
I love it. That's awesome.
So take us back. So here we are, you know, you had to overcome being molested. You come to this country, you know, you're getting bullied as a foreign kid. What adversities, when you're looking at obstacles in your life, because I've heard you talk, and I've heard you talk about the F's that you live by and the R's that you live by. And I think that a person like you probably looks back on certain moments in their life. And maybe it's those moments where we said, you know what, I'm going to own all this. You know, you said at 37 years old, you owned the fact that you were molested, and it took you to another level. So what are those adversities, maybe one or two that you're like, you know, I look back on this and I pull strength from it now. Now my adversity is Darren Hardy. I think it's a Darren Hardy quote. He says, my adversity is my advantage. Your adversity is your advantage.
Exactly. So I'll actually give you a recent one. So today we're in 2020. The year was 2013. And I found out, now keep in mind, Fit Body Bootcamp only had like 180 locations at the time. While that may sound like a lot, it's not compared to the 800 that we've sold and the almost 600 we've got open. In 2013, I'm not the leader that I am today. I didn't know how to problem solve, communicate. I really didn't know how to be decisive, make fast decisions, because I was afraid that what if I make a mistake? How's it going to look? How's it going to feel? What if it's going to cost me? But I knew there was something going on in my business, guys. And finally, I asked my wife, I said, hey, can you check to see what's going on? We've got 180 locations, but each month we only get enough money from maybe 100. The math doesn't work out. What's going on? We can't have collections that high. Well, as it turns out, we had an employee who intentionally was not charging some of our franchisees their monthly royalty fees, simply because she wanted to keep the company small so that she could be the top dog. Well, that put us in $640,000 in debt. Now imagine that. So I had a decision to make. I either had to work my way out of that negative hole while still trying to support our franchisees. Remember, as a franchisor, you have a responsibility to your franchisees. So you still got to support them, and I got to dig my way out of a hole. And it did cross my mind, because my attorney told me, he goes, or you can file bankruptcy and it all goes away. Now, in that moment, there is the easy path and there is the hard path. And we've all heard this. And if you haven't heard this, this is a words to live by. If you choose the easy path every time, you're going to live a hard life.
Yeah.
You choose the hard path, you're going to live an easy life. And it wasn't easy for me to decide that I'm not going to file bankruptcy, that I am going to dig my way out of that hole while serving my franchisees. And after 4 years, I was able to get out of that, become debt-free. But let me tell you, man, that was a painful process. Like, there's one set of adversity right there where, look, hey, I'm an American now. I can file bankruptcy. I've never filed bankruptcy. And I certainly didn't go intentionally maxing out credit cards like some people do. Like, I had every justifiable reason to file. My attorney was saying, file. If I were you, I would file.
Yeah. You know, there's certain core values that people come to live by. On our wall at every journey, it says, never give up. And I'll tell you where that came from. I was in prison, and one time I saw that, people would actually stick things to their walls, and they would stick them up on their walls with toothpaste, because we didn't have tape or anything, but toothpaste is a real good adhesive. And he had this frog that was about to be swallowed by a stork, and the frog is choking the stork, right? And it says, never give up. And I was like, that's me. I feel like that's me right now. Like this place could really swallow me up. And so I started living by that. And then I felt like, you know, I come home, we start a gym, you know, Phoenix becomes our logo. And I feel like never give up has been a core value. And right there, you could have folded. You could have filed bankruptcy, but you're like, you know, no, I'm not going to give up. And then, is that one of your core values? Is that like, you know, it's like a Winston Churchill secret to success, never give up, and that's how you just keep on persevering and keep on climbing? Or
that's exactly it. And I'll tell you this, I know I'm going to end up quoting a lot of Napoleon Hill here, but another thing Napoleon Hill says in his book, he says, the person who is willing to fight through adversity will encounter temporary defeats, but they will never encounter permanent failure.
Ooh, that's a good. Yeah.
The person that's willing to fight through adversity will encounter temporary defeats, but will never encounter permanent failure. So I knew that if I just fought through that period was going to be a temporary defeat. No one told me how long it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be 10 years or 10 months, but I knew that I'm going to fight through it, and it's going to be a temporary defeat. I will not succumb to permanent failure. And that's just a mindset that I live by ever since I read that in Napoleon Hill's book, Outwitting the Devil.
So it's like you're going to lose a few battles, but you're going to win the war, right?
Amen. Right there.
Yeah, very cool. Now, Napoleon Hill, is that also Think and Grow Rich?
Yes. So get this. Many people know Napoleon Hill because of Think and Grow Rich. But before he ever wrote Think and Grow Rich, in 1932, he wrote a book called Outwitting the Devil. He gave the manuscript to his wife, and the wife said, please do not publish this. We will be banned by the church. We will be banned by all of our friends. We will be banished. The book stayed as a manuscript from 1932 to 2011, when everybody, his whole estate finally died, his wife, his kids, everybody, and then the estate finally allowed it to be published. They had it in their will that when everybody connected to Napoleon Hill dies, the first generation, then it could get published. So 70 some odd years later, it gets published, and there's so much truth in that book. It would have undoubtedly been his #1 book instead of Think and Grow Rich had it been published then, but it also would have banished him from society because he literally corners the devil. That's why it's called Outwitting the Devil. He corners the devil, and he asks the devil, how do you take control of the minds of humanity? And the devil talks about the addictions that he puts us through, the fear that we live by, the doubt that he instills in us. And he says, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. He asks the devil, he says, what percentage of society do you control? And he says, 98%. He goes, I get you addicted, I get you distracted, and I get you drifting through life so that you do not have definitive of purpose. He says, so what about the other 2%? He goes, the other 2% is controlled by my opposition. He doesn't even say God. It's crazy. You got to listen to it on audio because the voices of the devil and Napoleon Hill are just so interesting, man. And it's such a powerful book, so ahead of its time.
Oh, I love stories like that. I love Faust and things such as that. So, I'm very interested. Outwitting the Devil, that's a big knowledge bomb. So I'm going to ask you for one final one, which is, if you could go back, because I consider you a very learned man. You're my mentor. I know you invest a lot in your personal development and professional development. You surround yourself with great people. Whether it's going back and talking to your younger self, giving yourself some tools, some things that you know now, or whether it's just giving our audience some advice today based on, overcoming adversities, to living your dreams. That's what we're here today. That's what we're talking about, because I hope that people, as they heard what you shared today, see that whatever they're going through, that they can overcome it too. What would you go back and tell yourself, if you could say, hey man, you're going to hit some shit, but I got you covered, right? Yeah.
That's a great question. So if I went back 20 years, I often think about 20 and 30 years. If I went back 20 years, I would be 25. If I went back 30 years, I'd be 15. But it's always the same answer for both. Whether I'm a teenager or I'm 25 years old, the answer is that you are going to encounter problems, embrace the problems, solve through the problems. That is God's way, the universe's way, like whatever your higher power is, That is their way of building your mental and emotional muscles. You don't just have physical muscles. You have mental and emotional muscles that you must build, that you must grow to be a better entrepreneur, better husband, better father, better everything. And so I didn't do that. When I looked at back then, when I got a problem as a young man, I go, well, this is God or whoever the higher power is not wanting me to be successful. Like, what? And so many people chalk it up to that and just give up, which goes back to what we talked about, permanent failure. Instead of let me problem solve through this, the act of problem solving is going to build my mental and emotional muscle. And I am going to be more resilient because of it, although I will have to go through temporary defeat.
Really good. Big difference in the perspective. I saw Robert Holden had a quote recently. Life is happening for you, not to you. Even the adversities are happening for you. You know, instead of blaming and running from them and everything else, this is happening for me. What a different perspective that would be to go through life, you know. Well, awesome. Bedros, for our viewers, you know, what's the best way to connect with you or follow you or, you know, get more inspiration from you, you know?
Sure. Best way is just to find me on social media, ideally Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram these days, at Bedros Keuilian.
Awesome, man. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank
you for all that you do for us.
Pleasure.
Yes,
I really appreciate this opportunity, seriously, and great success to you guys on the podcast here.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Overcomers Podcast, sponsored by Journey 333. When I am not hosting the Overcomers Podcast, I am working at one of our fitness franchises so that I can continue to help people overcome adversity on a daily basis. That's right, people come to the Journey 333 fitness franchises because they want a coach in their life. They want somebody to help them overcome the adversities of life, motivate them to higher levels of greatness, bring out their potential, help them lose weight, get off medications, fight depression, fight anxiety. That's what we do on a regular basis. If you feel like you want your life to be about helping more people to overcome their adversities, if you feel like you're an overcomer and you want to create more overcomers, then maybe owning a Journey 333 franchise would be for you. To find out more, go to www.journeyfitness333.com.